I'm Adam Grant. I'm an organizational psychologist at Wharton. And one of the things I've been doing for the past decade and a half is studying original thinkers, the nonconformists, people who are comfortable standing out and speaking up, who drive a lot of the creativity and change that exists in the world. And I've been trying to figure out what are their habits? How can we all become a little bit more like them? And I was surprised to discover that the most original thinkers among us, they procrastinate a lot. They have tons of bad ideas. In fact, more bad ideas than their peers, because they just have more ideas than their peers. And they feel the same fear and doubt that most of us do, but they choose to act anyway because they believe that it's not comfortable to fail. Nobody likes failing. But even more than the fear of failure, they're propelled by the fear of failure to try. And they want to know that they've taken a shot at doing something meaningful and new and different. And I've been thinking a lot about how we can actually teach students to be original thinkers, because I think education is not about the knowledge that you cram into your head. It's actually about the skills that you gain about how to learn, so that you can go on from school knowing how to continue evolving your understanding, how to develop new capabilities that you didn't have before. And as I did this work, I realized I was a hypocrite, because in my own classroom, I teach a class for undergrads on evidence-based management. The whole class is about learning, what do the data say about what works for most of the people most of the time? If you're trying to motivate someone or make a good decision or drive an organizational change, what's going to be effective? And I realized that I wasn't actually encouraging students to be original. Right? Their job was to internalize the evidence and then apply it to their own lives and their own work, as opposed to, well, what if they question the evidence? What if they asked, well, might the opposite be true in certain industries or certain jobs or any kind of circumstance? So I decided I had to try to apply my own ideas in the classroom. And I didn't want to do it at the beginning of the semester, because after all, I wanted students to understand the ideas and the data that they were learning about before they challenged them. But I started by saying, even at the beginning of the semester, we can show them how complicated these ideas are. So I introduced research on psychological safety, the belief that you can take a risk in a team and you won't be punished for it. And I walked them through Amy Edmondson's research, which actually showed that when you had more psychological safety in your hospital team, that the team ended up having a higher error rate, more medical errors. And the question is why? And I challenged the students to go and figure out, well, what is the cost of feeling safe in your team, feeling trust, feeling that you're really respected? And they came back with great explanations, like, oh, well, people won't double check each other as much. They won't monitor each other more, as closely as they would have otherwise. And, problems can slip through the cracks that way. And then I said, well, this is all well and good. But if you take a closer look at the data, the original data were just on errors reported, whether people admitted that they made a mistake in their teams. But does that mean they're actually making more errors? So you go beyond errors reported and you actually look at independent observations of whether the team objectively made an error, and you find out that the relationship reverses. That when you feel psychological safety, when you trust your team members, when you feel like you're not going to get punished for making a mistake, you admit more of them, but you actually make fewer of them, because you're motivated then to learn from your mistakes and you have the knowledge you need to figure out what errors other people have made and then try to develop systems to correct them. And this is a way of getting students to turn their own assumptions upside down, to say, look, you can generate an explanation for anything, but there are conditions under which the opposite might be true. And I think the element of surprise is so critical for engaging them in thinking differently. So then as the semester goes on, they learn a lot of the principles that I want them to understand. About 2/3 of the way through, I say, all right, we're going to do an assignment that's going to give you a chance to challenge everything you're learning. I'm going to pair you up. You can choose whether you're going to work with somebody of your choosing or whether you want to be randomly assigned to a partner. And the two of you are going to work together to film a mini TED Talk, 5 minutes max. It has to challenge something that you've learned in the course. It has to turn one of our assumptions upside down. It has to complicate it, and it has to be counterintuitive in some way. And it's your job to marshal your own evidence for why your idea might be true and what you're learning in class is not complete, or is inconsistent, or has changed as the world of work has changed. And I was just blown away by the creativity that students brought to the table. Not only in the ideas that they developed, but also the ways that they delivered their talks. And I think that I realized from that experience that I really was failing to follow my own principles. That if you want students to learn to be original thinkers, you have to give them a chance to step outside the bounds of the assumptions that they're learning in your classroom. And in doing that, I actually learned new things because some of the students had questions that were exciting enough to lead to brand new research projects, which ultimately then generate new data that we feed back into the class.